So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and their challenges and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Charlie Breese, who's Managing Director at Sylatech Ltd. So firstly, Charlie, thank you for spending a little bit of time for us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Sylatech and the wonderful things you do and how you help people, that would be great.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. Hi, I'm Charlie Breese, as Chris has said, MD of Sylatech. We're based in Kirby Moorside in North Yorkshire. We are specialists in the design and manufacture of RF microwave antennas, subsystems, assemblies, components, and in sort of liquid metal component forming. So it's a very niche engineering business. We've been here for just over 50 years, employing around about 140 people and currently on a reasonably complicated growth trajectory.
Wonderful. A reasonably complicated growth trajectory. Right. We'll make sure we talk about that.
They're never easy, are they?
Yes, that's what business is all about, isn't it? Wonderful. So perhaps if we could start, John, by telling us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Sure. Having gone through school and university and such like, having had my summer of relaxation, I was booted off by a very irate father to get some work and ended up as a land agent in Malton, which was really because I didn't really work very hard at university and was about all I could get. But it just shows that what you can do if you apply yourself, I suppose. I did about 6 years with land agency and then joined our family food manufacturing business, which was called Westlers at Motherby, which was quite a sizable family food manufacturing, employing about 280 to 300 people.
Wow.
And got involved with that. I always wanted to be involved with the family business, but was told to go and sort of dust off some sharp edges of youth before I went and joined the family business. Got involved with that and eventually having gone through some challenging times related to final salary pension schemes, left there about 8 years ago and joined Sylatech as an engineering company who were having some problems that I had experienced in my other business and was asked to come in and see if I could help, turn things around a little bit and shape things for the future.
Oh, wonderful. Sounds very exciting. So going even further back now, is it when you were growing up, is this the sort of career that you thought you might have, or had you other plans?
Absolutely not. I always wanted to be a farmer.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I certainly never saw myself as a foodie, and I certainly never thought myself as a mechanic. I don't do engines. I'm not a petrol head. I'm not an engineer by trade, but I have developed into a role where I can basically herd engineers and move them around. I think is probably the best thing. But no, never thought of myself as an engineer or as a managing director. I suppose I was always interested in the countryside originally. But,
wonderful.
Very happy with my decision.
Yeah, wonderful. And you use the word herding engineers. Funny enough, my background was a software engineering organisation, but very much within the power industry. So engineering disciplines and control systems and things. And the idea of herding engineers is quite, yes, I can empathise with that idea. It's yes, probably even more difficult than cats, perhaps.
Indeed. Yeah, one of the things that I have learned over the years is that in business and in everything in life, everybody's very different. But engineers are remarkably similar, and they're basically polar opposites of me. I'm sort of high energy now, and they're about the opposite end of the spectrum. So I have learned quite a lot about how to deal with engineers and different people as we've gone through business.
It's an interesting point, actually. I listened to a lady called Jennifer Byrne recently, who's the ex-CTO at Microsoft, who's worked directly with Bill Gates, and she said a couple of really interesting things. But one was the word a team is actually just a construct we've created. But what we must remember, it's a significant number of different interpersonal relationships. It's not just me and the team. I
agree. It's a collection of skills, really,
yes.
and the real skill is to manage those skills to the best output.
Yeah. Absolutely, and you mentioned you're on a sort of an interesting growth curve historically and moving forward. But looking perhaps backwards right now, what are some of the biggest issues and challenges that you've had to overcome as you've grown the business?
It's probably banging the same old drum. I think resources is one of the most complicated things that skilled production like ours, it's you can't get people off the street and just expect them to come in and be effective from day one. Getting people into a business and training them and retaining them whilst keeping them happy and motivated and such like, I think has been and continues to be the most complicated challenge that I've experienced in all of my manufacturing lives, really. It's always difficult to quantify the value of good people until they've sometimes, and it's very easy to take these things for granted.
Yes.
But it's such an investment, and it often is the thing that gets sort of dropped or avoided or just left behind because it sort of almost isn't as critical as the crisis that you're currently facing.
Yes.
So I think people and resources, resource management, resource retention, probably the biggest single thing that I find the most challenging, and the thing that we spend probably the most time on now that we're a little bit more wise.
And my feeling for working businesses for quite a period of time is that it's becoming more and more difficult, therefore more and more important to find and keep great people. Is that your feeling? And
yeah, absolutely. And as the employment landscape changes, the culture around being employed has changed over the last 4 to 5 years. There isn't the same loyalty that there used to be. I think the average job length in the UK at the moment is around 4 years. It used to be considerably longer than that. People were there for life. They're now there for 3 or 4 years. There's a lot more visibility of what the competition are doing through the social media and all these kinds of things. So there's a lot more tools to make people consider moving jobs more frequently, which is frustrating.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm working with quite a few people on that is the idea of, we're very familiar with marketing for the right type of client, doing a lot of work to give customer delight and therefore keep customers for a long time. And for me, given they're just people as well, the same principle should apply on our team as it applies for customers. We typically would understandably have an effective marketing budget, client retention budget, all these sorts of things, and really we should mirror that for our own teams. Yeah,
absolutely, couldn't agree more.
So from the both from your challenges and also the things that have gone well, what would you say some of the biggest things you've learned about businesses and growing them?
Well, I was reflecting on this as I was preparing for the call. I think if you go back to when you're younger and in your early 20s, you just assume that you know everything. And the reality is you know absolutely nothing. But you think you know everything. You're impulsive and you want to be on, you want to create change because you think the old guard are old and duffery. And so I think as I've quickly got older, and as you can clearly see, I'm no longer in my fighting prime. I have realised that actually a lot of those old guard are actually talking sense, and the fact was I wasn't actually listening. And if I could switch back time, I wish I'd listened a little bit more when I was younger. But also, I think there was a lot of times where a bit of young blood and some energy and that challenge is very healthy. The ability and the skill is actually to listen to the feedback if it's good or bad or whatever, or then learn how to deal with that response. There's no point being a moody child and kicking a milk bottle over. It's you've got to learn, think, right, I need to engineer my way through this. If they're not going to do it yet, I need to tell them how, make it their idea, kind of thing. And at least we get to the end game. So it definitely, your youth is a formative and energetic phase, but I wish I was wiser when I was younger. I think now where we are, I've learned to listen more. I found that I had my ideas, and that was pretty much the highway, and that's where we were going. And as we've built more of a team, which is a big thing that I'll come on to in a minute, having a good, robust management team around you, as I said, it's a collection of skills. You've actually got specialists in all areas, and sometimes you need to shut up and listen to the advice you're being given. And then you get the support of everybody around you, and you end up making far better decisions, I think, if you listen to those who are more skilled in that particular area. So something like that. The senior leadership side of thing. We have something called an SLT, and we've done a lot of work understanding each other, through disc profiling.
Great.
One of the key things that we've done. And we found that invaluable. And actually that has made a fundamental step change in how the company is performing, because the senior leadership team is performing better. We understand each other better. We respect each other better. We behave better. And we're also more aligned behind a common strategy. And if I said, what would be the advice would be, I'd say, make sure you understand what your strategy is, because then you can communicate. And communication is such an important part of any business.
Absolutely, and it's the key role of a leader, I think, isn't it? The managers are there to get things do things right in the right quantity. Leaders are there to give direction, to communicate that vision and the values, and make sure people are operating in the right manner to the right end. Yeah,
absolutely. Things like really simple things like behaviors and values, I've underestimated for so long, and actually, it's only really now, when you're getting to the critically busy times, when it's important that you've got good values in a business and you've got people behaving right. When you get new starters that come in and they ask a question and say, what's it like as being part of the team at Sylatech? They go, yeah, it's great. Actually, the management teams, they talk to us a lot. They're nice people. There's always an open door. Simple little things like that can be the difference of retention and not. And it's almost free, that side of it. It costs you a little bit of time, but it's just simple and common sense. It's how you would like to be treated yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's so valuable in that recruitment process of, potential recruits.
Yeah, you can recruit to your values and to the behaviours. And then if they're an absolute tyrant, you can, well, I'm sorry, you're not behaving in accordance with our values and behaviours. So thanks very much.
No, absolutely wonderful. And it's so important. And the same going back to the talk about, clients and employees being on a similar level, using our values with our clients. I think, if we've got a poor value match with our clients, then typically we do have more challenges. It doesn't necessarily mean we wouldn't work with them, but it's understanding that the best. I always sort of believe that good relationships come with a match of goals. We both want the same thing. But great relationships come with a match of values. We both think the same thing.
Yeah, and interestingly, we now, I never used to do it, but now we talk about our values to all of our customers, and they like that, because we're dealing with a lot of blue chip people, and they've got all of that embedded, but you don't often see it being praised and lauded around as part of a presentation by an SME of our kind of scale to somebody like an Airbus or a Rolls Royce or something. We make a big point of the fact that we value our employees and our team ethos on a site, because we want to retain that staff, because that's important for the longevity of the skills, so we can supply parts.
Brilliant. No, it absolutely makes sense, and it's almost illogical when you think about it, to have a strong set of values but not tell anybody outside the team, if you like, because it's like, no, this is who we are. If you want to be part of our team,
like another hidden secret, or why? It's a good news story.
Yeah, it very much is, isn't it? And it's really key. And Charlie, you're probably aware we're a business coaching organisation, and from a coaching perspective, I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general.
Okay. One, go right back to the early days. I had a really excellent cricket coach when I was sort of between 16, 17, 18, and really instilled team ethos in my life. I've always been a team sports player, but he just went on and on about team. It's team. It doesn't matter if you're out, the team will prop you up and things like that. So that was a nice early start. And I got that sort of the logic behind the power of team and the less individualisms. I think that helped when I got into business. I wasn't interested in success for myself. I was interested in success for the team. So that side of it. In terms of in business, one of the best sort of individualistic coaches was a guy called Ian Connell, who was actually brought into my family business when we had problems with the pension. And he was a real breath of fresh air, superb clarity of direction, excellent speaker, excellent thinker, just sucked up information from that and learned and thought, took the good bits and my past not so good bits. So he was incredibly helpful. The business then was bought out by private equity for a while. So they're an entirely different animal compared to family.
Yes.
But they look at business very differently, and I seized the opportunity. I was lucky enough to have 4 years working with private equity before they sold it, and I found that absolutely fascinating, because I was just so used to a typical Yorkshire view on a business and where it's going, and they're just how to do this. It was just so different, and it was refreshing. So, and if you're open-minded enough to learn, then that's great. But then more recently, we've been lucky enough to win an award in Sylatech, where we've been getting a government-sponsored grant to get business support through a coaching house called Sharing in Growth, which is specifically designed to support businesses in aerospace to help grow to develop the UK economy in aerospace. And they brought with them a whole team of experts in different fields, whether it's in strategy, whether it's in interpersonal stroke HR, whether it's in operational performance or in root cause analysis. And we're 2 years into a 4-year program with them, multifunction, multidiscipline, and they basically live on our site for a day a week or 2 days a week in different pockets that we are focusing on. And they've just brought a really sort of a whole and encompassing business coaching ethos to the business, which is providing great structure, lots and lots of tools that we now use as part of our day-to-day, so that when the program grant has finished, it'll be embedded in our day-to-day, and the business should then be able to carry on. So sort of a combination of sort of individuals, but then more latterly, we've had the Sharing in Growth, which has been an enormous sort of business tool for us to really provide some structure to help our growth.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. And you were talking earlier about I can't remember the adjective you used, but the interesting growth curve that you're on. Is that part of that? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I mean, everybody knows we're growing quite quickly. It's on a smaller scale. We're going from X million to 30%, and I'm sort of late single-digit millions. But just delivering growth in a challenging market with massive inflation problems and recruitment challenges and all those kinds of things. They're just challenges. They're not unsurmountable, but it just means that every day you come in, there's another little bonfire that's been started at the car park, and you've just got to figure out a way of getting some water down there to go and enable you to crack on. But they're no different to what everybody else is really feeling. There's plenty of. I'm struggling to see quite how bad the recession is in the UK, because I can't seem to make it fast enough. Can't seem to get the people, and all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's everything's sort of surmountable, but it's just the day-to-day challenge of running a niche manufacturing business in Kirby Moorside, I suppose.
Brilliant. I'm interested to know you just looking at the as you grow. My business, we got to over 100 people, so we got into double-digit million of turnover. And I remember when talking about people specifically. I remember when there was 20 of us, I knew everybody knew each other. We knew our partners and wives, our families, everything. And then you sort of get to sort of 50 or 60 and you sort of know the person, but you probably don't know much about the background. And then, you get above about 80 or 90 and it's sort of, well, who's that? And how have you developed your leadership and management skills to adjust if there's any commonality with that? How have you adapted to that those sort of changes?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think if I went back 5 years, I'd say I probably knew 50% of the people in the company. I think I know about 99% nowadays. But I've made it sort of mandatory to the senior leadership team and encouraged everybody else to make sure that they go around the factory every single day. Have to be every part of it, but just get yourself out of your comfort zone, go into manufacturing, go and speak to somebody, just remind them that you're human. We're part of the team. It's not on them and it's not on us. We are a team, and we're united behind a common thing. So the physical interaction of talking is what we really try to promote, specifically from the leadership team. But also the other thing we have done is, I was going to say quadruple, but I think it's probably tenfold did the amount of communication that we've done as a business. And we're not just talking about sticking things on the notice board. We're doing a huge amount more, actually providing them with more business information, providing them with more tools. We've created a bespoke app that we can put information on, whether it's business information, visitor information, social information, health and safety information, HR documents for uploads and things like that, just so that they've got all of the tools and there's never any kind of excuse of, well, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
All of the information. We talk to the team more than we have ever done. And that really started from the beginning of COVID, when you were literally doing weekly newsletters going out and trying to communicate with people, and they liked the information. So we then built on it, and we just do it as a matter of course now. But that has been a really big change for us over the last 3 years.
Brilliant. And that brilliant, absolutely makes perfect sense. And you were saying about it's funny about you talk about the recession. I think I love what I think was Walt Disney's quote, that was something like, I've been told there's a recession coming, but I've chosen not to participate. Which,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but I always look at recessions in general. There are obviously some situations, like 2008 was a very clear, great reason. But often, the media will talk us into a recession because bad news means I better not spend if I don't spend.
I know.
And if we just all said, look,
just
stop
listening to the news and just get on with it, we'd be a lot better off, wouldn't we?
It helps me, to be honest. I really don't listen to a lot of news, and I find my friends typically tell me what's the most important things going on, but I miss out. But typically that's really important and interesting, whereas most of the stuff is just bad news. But there we go. I think sometimes we can't afford to. But speaking of quotes, do you have any favourite sort of quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using on a regular basis?
Yeah, one or two. I think, I can't remember if it was Churchill, but I think, was it "Never waste a good crisis"? There's one that we and then my other one, which follows on from that, is, which out of bad will always come good. If you're clever enough and you work hard enough, you'll always make good out of a bad situation, whether it's a contract or a person, or there's always a way of finding a better way forward if you just put your mind to it.
Brilliant. I was told a long time ago, I've chosen not to find out in case it's not true, but in one of the Chinese dialects, there is a symbol for, I think it's challenge, which has two parts. One is for problem and one is for opportunity. And I just like that point of and the thing I found, Charlie, is that, and I say this to lots of people, is, look, if you've got a problem and it's economic or industry wide, then so have our competitors. Therefore, our ability to solve the problem could put us way ahead. It's rare that we've only got that problem. That's I do like that.
Well, I'm an optimist, so I'm always looking for the positive in any situation.
Absolutely. I'm guessing there's lots of I in your behavioural profile.
You might be right.
Good. Okay, I thought that might be the case. And so, Charlie, what have you learnt about yourself as you've developed your career?
I think I've learned to listen more than I did, and I think I've learned to value the team and people more than I did. I used to, if I go back to my more ruthless, very fast-moving food business, there were more commodities, and I'm ashamed to say it, but it was all about get the product out, and that's changed, and it's changed most significantly having gone from food into engineering. But they are two entirely different tempos of businesses. Entirely different tempos of businesses. Food was sort of 30 hours a day, 14 days a week, and engineering is 4 days a week, 7 hours a day. So it's the way of life is nice, but there's still plenty of those little bonfires lying around, ready for you to burn your toes on. So I think, learn to listen has been a thing that I've learned over the years, and be a bit more empathetic around. It's not all about me. It's really about every single other person within the business that's helping you drive that success.
It's really interesting. I think that's a really strong trait of leadership. And I was recently reading Kevin Sinfield's book, and very much talking about, he realised at an early age that the best way he was going to win was by getting the best out of the people around him.
Yeah.
And not just being the best he could be, which he focused on as well, but it was that ability to do that. And funnily enough, I heard Tony Smith, who was one of Kevin's coaches, obviously Kevin's coach at Leeds, was also saying that was his that was his mantra, was about, as a player and then as a coach, it was about getting the best out of the people, not just doing the best yourself. And I think that's
couldn't agree more.
It's
couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So just looking forward, and it's amazing that what you're achieving, but also the plans that you have. What does the future look like for you guys, and what are the main challenges you face moving forward, if any?
The future looks for, we've very much set a strategic goal of growth. We believe we've got the ability to go from current scale to sort of nearly double within 4 years, heading up towards sort of 15, 16 million. We've got a couple of very, very interesting R&D projects that are coming to sort of really interesting phases now. We're getting to the point where things are going to start to be switched on, and we're heading in towards production of some things that could potentially change the shape of our parts of our industry.
Wow.
So that's very, very exciting for us. The difficulty is it's a distraction from the core business. So we've got to make sure that we focus on the core while still trying to develop the blue sky and make the absurd actually touchable and believable and things. So as with many SMEs, you end up trying to do too many things. And I regularly say, there's too much going on here today. There's too much going on at Sylatech.
Yep.
We've got a lot to do. Stop bringing in more, tidal waves of opportunities. We've got to make sure we consolidate and deliver on what we've got at the moment. So I think dealing with all of the opportunities that are presented to us is probably one of the bigger challenges. If I'm going to leave resources aside, it's making sure that we deliver on those opportunities, using the tools and the resources and the team that we've got to deliver well. We've got underinvested planning systems, underinvested purchasing systems. So if you're suddenly growing, these things strain even further, which means you're straining the team further. Yep. So we've got to just make sure that we grow and at a deliverable pace, because what I don't want to do is grow badly. I want to grow well with my customers, not get to the end of it and then immediately lose the customers. It's really important that they come with us on the journey. So it's managed growth, making sure we do it well, I think.
Wonderful. It sounds very, very exciting.
There's always a lot going on. Unbelievable amount going on. Which is exciting. It does mean that most days aren't the same, which is super. But sometimes you just think, oh God, blimey, could do with a slightly easier day.
One of the other things that Jennifer Burns said, and I have a similar phrase, but I think her phrase was slow down to speed up. Which I like that phrase. And sometimes it's just like, stop, let's slow down, because that will help us go in the long term.
I absolutely. I think that's a great. I'm maybe going to have to remember that one, because it's so important. Sometimes you get impulsive, right, we need to do this now, and then all of a sudden you just go, actually, God, if only I'd thought about that. And you wake up the next day, and I'll make a much better decision the following day. And it's not, in the big scheme of life, that 4, 6, 8, 10 hours is nothing, but you've made a massive difference. So I think that's a good point. Slow down to speed up.
Yeah, I think it works really well. I know our founder, Brad Sugars, who's a very successful guy. He's got Brad's whiteboard, or Brad's big whiteboard, in their team, and he comes in, he says, I've got a great idea, great, put it on the board, and it has to stay there for at least a week before anybody does anything with it. And what typically happens, apparently, is within the week, in many cases, he'll come in and say, who had that stupid idea? Right, take it off. And so it's if it survives the week, then it's probably something worth working on. But it's so difficult sometimes to when you are operating at optimum or at, above optimal speed, isn't it, to be able to make those calls and those decisions? Yeah. And often we're pushed by other people's urgency and importance rather than
and we have a businesses in growth has targets. You have all of the production team trying to hit targets. They want answers quickly, and then you're the one that goes, whoa, hang on a minute. So there is that fine balance of rash decisions and informed decisions. But I do like your slow down to go forward.
No, speed up. I think it works sometimes, because especially when what I've often found is you can sort of we can be infected by other people's sort of headless chicken mode, and you start to feel it. Whereas as soon as I start to feel that sort of level of of stress, and which could be anxiety. No, let's slow down. Let's just step by step. Let's do one step.
And actually, that's a big point. Is if it's really important as a leader to make sure you lead by example.
Yes.
Because if you then look like a headless chicken running around, and they can see it in the way you walk, in the way you smile or don't smile, or the way you get out of your car in the morning, you're watched all the time as management, and
Absolutely.
it is important that you lead by example. So even if you're coming in on the worst day, you've got to have your head up and walk confidently and look like you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. We often say you can't not communicate, and it's sort of it's we're always communicating, and it's sort of
you are, whether indirectly or directly, you're always doing. You're on video stream all the time, aren't you?
Absolutely. And Charlie, I'm interested to know what you say to anyone that's thinking of going into business right now.
I think there's just a great opportunity for a great life if you're interested in it. I'd definitely try and find an industry that you're interested in, unless you're just driven by success. I mean, I'm driven by success, so I don't mind not really understanding engineering. To me, it's about a business with people in, and the people is, so it's almost not the industry. It's they've got the skills to do what the business needs. But I think in the UK, I think there's some interesting times. I think, if I was going back 25 years and thinking about getting into business, I'd be thinking, crikey, I need to be in UK manufacturing. There's great opportunities, reshoring coming in. There's investment, whether it's Northern Powerhouse or leveling, whatever it is. There's opportunity out there if you're prepared to, work hard. It is hard work. It is hard work. But if you're prepared to do that, roll your sleeves up and get on. You can have a ton of fun, and you can make a ton of money, and you can learn and develop, and don't be frightened to change either. If you go into one industry and you don't like it, just take the good bits that you've got out of one and go and apply it in the next one. Don't be frightened to change, but preferably don't stay for 4 years only and then go on to the next job and on to the next job. So I think it's a great time to be in UK manufacturing. Apart from energy costs and labour, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure that's had an impact. The energy costs on you guys as well. It's interesting what you say though, because I know speaking to our founder many times, and a couple of things he's always talked about was he went through he still is in a fairly acquisitive phase, but he went through quite an early phase of buying and building businesses himself. And one of the lessons he learned very quickly was to buy businesses where he couldn't do the work. So he was never tempted to. So he went through a phase of buying lots of hairdressing salons because he just can't cut hair. Yeah. And the point being is you never get drawn into the day job.
Yeah, into the detail. You just run it as a business and let the skilled people do what they do best.
Absolutely. And because as you rightly say, the principles of business apply, the general principles of business apply across any industry and any business, if you understand that it's about people and systems and
that's where I always think sport is good, because it does teach you to deal with people. And in business, you need to be able to, unless you're sort of some incredible software XYZ and you don't need people, leave them out of it for the moment. But if you're in a sort of a business where you are working with people and with a team around you, the ability to deal with people is absolutely paramount. And I would encourage anybody, if you're not comfortable or you don't think you're very good at people management, get some help, because it is about the most important thing you need in your skill book.
Brilliant. Very, very sound advice. And just looking back yourself, if you started again, is there anything significant that you might do differently, Charlie?
Pretty much my entire life. I don't think the podcast is long enough for me to tell you about all the things that I would do.
This isn't a confessional, by the way, just so we're clear.
Forgive me, Father, but I have. Yeah, there's lots of things, but I think I mentioned earlier, I would listen more, and I would urge myself to consider the importance of. I should have listened to my cricket coach more and associated that with business, and thought, the team around you is what makes you successful. And I don't think I listened to that enough. Well, I listened at the time for sport, but I didn't then transgress it into business properly. So I think those are probably the key things I would do differently. It's
really interesting. It's really interesting point that we as an organisation have more and more embraced sports coaching systems and processes in what we do from a coaching perspective. And our director of coaching is actually my personal coach, but he's an ex-Olympic badminton coach. So he had somebody that was bronze in 2012, I think. And we're learning so much more about, because you rightly say, no, sports coaching and those principles are way in advance of any other industry or sector in terms of getting the best performance out of people.
And I love all that concept within sport. There's you can improve by doing 1,000 marginal wins. A bit like Formula One. They want to get 0.1 of a second wherever they can, because constantly that takes you back into being in front. And sport is good at that. It does train you to just try to inch your way forward to be, one goal better or one try better, or
absolutely.
So I think, if we could all learn from our sporting, camaraderie and ethos, I think that would help.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Joe, thank you so much. That's been absolutely fascinating, and it would be great if possible, maybe swing by another 6-12 months and just see where we are at the next stage of development and growth. But for anyone watching that would like to contact you or the company, what would be the best way to do so?
Just come through to Sylatech on the main landline, or through the inquiries at Sylatech sort of email, and they can easily get hold of me. I'm always on site. The mobile's always on, and things. So I'm always around and about. It's very straightforward. The website is www.sylatech.com, and there's links into that for chats and my contacts. So be delighted to receive any inquiries, or anyone wants to talk about it.
Brilliant. And maybe someone wants a job. Let's see.
Maybe somebody wants a job at this unique engineering business in Kirby Northside. You never know.
Absolutely. Well, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to today, Charlie.
Nice to speak to you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.